There's one particular part of America's infrastructure that's truly garbage right now. And I'm talking about America's water system. The question is, why is it that bad? Well, let's find out in another edition of If You Don't Know, Now You Know. Water. It's Mike Pence's favorite soup. Water is one of the essentials for human survival, along with food, air, and the new Olivia Rodrigo album, which just, guys, she gets me, yo. But as important as it is, in America, the infrastructure that transports the water is breaking down faster than me listening to the Olivia Rodrigo album.
It's an issue that's tough to see, literally. Water problems, often they go unnoticed until it's too late, but it's a problem that's getting worse across the country with aging infrastructure.
The nation's water infrastructure system gets a grade of D by the American Society of Civil Engineers. Thousands of dams and levees are on the brink of failure.
Our water infrastructure all over the country is literally hitting a breaking point everywhere. The last time there was a major rehaul of water infrastructure, creating these new pipes and systems, was about 1945.
The sewer and water systems we're living off systems were actually some of them built in the 19th century.
In at least 545 municipalities across the country, there are cast iron pipes that are now more than 100 years old. The aging infrastructure has led to a point where a water main breaks somewhere in this country every 2 minutes.
God damn, people, a pipe is bursting every 2 minutes? If America were a person, it would have to wear depends. America's water pipes are so bad that they got a D from the infrastructure experts. And keep in mind, a pipe that gets an F is just a puddle of water. And it's not surprising that these pipes are falling apart, because some of them have been around since the 19th century. So not only are they failing, but they're also probably a little racist. I mean, I guess on the bright side that this is definitely keeping America's enemies from invading. You know, North Korea is probably looking at America like, the layout is nice, but the plumbing is a disaster. I mean, it's just not worth the gut renovation. I don't know, guys. And look, people, unless you live in Mario World, you probably don't spend a lot of your time thinking about pipes. But you should. Because when the pipes that carry America's water become old and busted, the effects can be pretty drastic.
Our aging water infrastructure systems are making clean, safe drinking water unreliable in many parts of this country.
The National Resources Defense Council estimates 30 million Americans drink community water that contains lead, and 5.5 million get water that exceeds the EPA's maximum levels.
Go east, and in places like North Carolina, water has been contaminated by coal ash. Go west, it's nitrates from fertilizers.
So we have blue water here.
We let our water system just dilapidate to the point of collapse. It's like third world country here.
Our wastewater systems are crumbling. People are living with sewage water and sewage in their streets, in their backyards.
The city of Fort Lauderdale rushing to clean out more than 200 million gallons of toxic sewage, flooding the streets, seeping into houses, and spilling into waterways.
Rivers of raw sewage flowing down streets in Ventnor. It's really gross.
It stinks real bad. I can't move my car. I'm not putting my car in there. That is a lake if I ever saw one.
Wow, that poor guy. What a bad deal to live next to a shit lake. If I was him, I'd try and sell that house ASAP. That's right, I'm selling some lakefront property. Oh, cool. What lake? Man, it's a lake. Do you want it or not? And shit lakes aside, do you see that gross blue water? I mean, I don't care where you live. Taking a bath should never turn into a surprise gender reveal. And by the way, can America please stop comparing all of its failures to the third world? Because every time there's an infrastructure problem or an insurrection, Americans are like, this is just like a third world country. This is a third world country. No, guys, it's not cool. Right? Because you don't hear Africans comparing their school shootings to America. They don't do that. You know why? Because Africa doesn't have school shootings. Yeah, all our children are soldiers. So how did America's water system end up this way in the first place? Well, basically, a lot of people in the past decided that rather than fixing a bunch of little problems back then, it would be easier to wait for them to become big problems and then leave them to us.
infrastructure is not particularly sexy. You know, it's something that seems easy to kick from one year to the next, and suddenly you look up and it's been 30 years.
According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, the federal government's capital spending on water infrastructure has dropped from 63% in 1977 to 9% in 2017.
Repairing, improving, maintaining the nation's water systems requires big money. The American Water Works Association estimates it will take $1 trillion for drinking water alone.
As costs to fix the systems continue to rise, investment in water infrastructure has increasingly fallen to state and local governments over the past few decades.
The problem is that cities are burdened by debt and don't have the money to fix pipes.
Milwaukee has a program to split the cost of replacing lead pipes with homeowners, but so far, only 1% has been done.
The city is trying to replace 70,000 lead laterals, and at a pace at about 1,000 a year. It would take 70 years.
All right, you gotta be kidding. 70 years? In 70 years, we won't even need pipes. We probably just absorb water through NFTs or something.
Jesus Christ!
What do you now own the art? The only other time you hear something's gonna take 70 years is when you're on the phone with your cable company.
Yeah, we can get a guy to come check out your router in 2091. Does any time between 11 p.m. and 3 p.m. work for you?
What? I'll be dead by then!
Do you want the appointment or not, sir?
Okay, I'll take it. And you know, as crazy as this is, I actually get why politicians never want to spend money on pipes. Because it's expensive and it's boring. I mean, think about it. If you open a new stadium, you get to hold a press conference there. You know, with a big ribbon cutting. It's flashy. But how are you supposed to celebrate a new sewage pipe? Huh? What, you invite the press to watch you take a huge dump at City Hall? Well, that's actually not a bad idea. But the reason this has gotten so bad and so expensive is because they waited so long to fix it. You see, people, you have to address problems when they come up or they just get worse. And that goes for everything. Infrastructure, relationships, hell, even this mole that I probably should have gotten checked out before it grew into its own person.
I was fine, buddy. You can probably put it up for another 10 years.
You know, you're right, Mo. I love this guy. And while the water situation is pretty poor across the entire United States, there's one group of people in the U.S. who are getting the shortest, dirtiest, most lead-covered end of the stick. And you can probably guess who it is, right? Who? Who?
There is a close correlation between race and economics and whether or not you have clean water in the United States of America.
Newark is a largely poor, mostly Black and Hispanic city, and its lead levels are among the highest in the U.S. for large water systems. Some houses here tested 4 times the federal limit.
Much of Mississippi's largest city is beginning its 4th week without safe drinking water coming out of faucets. Jackson residents, about 80% of whom are Black, remain under a system-wide order to boil water.
For the past 8 years, Keystone, West Virginia, has been under a boil water advisory. 8 years. It's so common it doesn't even make headlines anymore.
You can run the water sometime, and it's as brown as I am.
Good Lord. The water is as brown as I am? And when people were asking for more Black representation, they weren't talking about the water supply. I know that. And this is extremely messed up that so many Black people in America don't have access to clean drinking water. I mean, I know reparations might not happen anytime soon, but maybe America can start with a Brita filter. I will say, though, it's impressive how even with this shitty water supply, Blacks still don't crack. Can you imagine how good Black people would look with proper hydration? Ooh-wee. So, there you have it. America's water systems are on the verge of collapse, and the country needs to start fixing them now. This isn't a problem that can be kicked down the road anymore, people, especially when that road is buried 6 feet under shit lake. And if you don't know, now you know.
Just imagine being so good at what you do. It's scary.
What is one of the biggest concerns people have about modern technology? Privacy, right? Because our phones know everything about us. What music we listen to, how much sleep we get, what our face looks like when we're pooping. But now, Apple is going to give you a little more control over how widely that information is shared.
You know how it goes. You search for something online, then see an ad on Facebook or Instagram for that exact item. Well, Apple is making it harder for apps to track your online activities.
When you're using apps on your iPhone, you may start to see this.
Apple users must now give permission for apps to track your online activity data. Before, you could only opt out. It's about time. Jenny Gephardt is with the privacy nonprofit, the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Switching from opt-out to opt-in is huge. That is what's going to really make a lot more users opt out of this tracking feature that wasn't built for users, it was built for advertisers.
That's right, people. With the new iOS update, you have to opt in to being tracked online instead of having to opt out. And I know it might seem like a small change, but this is a huge deal because people are lazy as shit. Like, think about it. If Apple said that they were going to put all your nudes online unless you opted out, you'd probably be like, what? No way. Wow. Where's that opt-out option? Settings, general. Where? You know what? I'm proud of my third. And people don't understand how much information Facebook is actually getting from your other apps. Like, you think it's a small thing. You know how you always like to your friends, oh, I was talking about something, and then it popped up. Is my phone listening to me? No, it's the apps. Like, if you're in Atlanta and you check the weather in Vermont, it won't wait for you to search for a winter coat before it starts showing you ads for one. And if you've been ordering pizza every night on Grubhub, well, then the ads will show you a coat that's 2 sizes up, because it knows. So, this new privacy feature is good news for iPhone users, but it turns out it's very bad news for one of Apple's biggest rivals, Facebook. In fact, it's so bad for them that they've started throwing up pop-ups begging everyone to let them keep tracking us and warning us that if we don't, Facebook might stop being free of charge. And I'm not going to lie, people, that seems like an empty threat to me, because who would pay to be on Facebook with the type of people willing to pay to be on Facebook? I mean, that's like a crack house at a cover charge. I actually wouldn't mind if Facebook started charging people, because I think if they did, maybe people would actually think for a second before they post it. The government puts fluoride in the water to brainwash us. Oh, $1. I'll keep it to myself. Now, the reason Facebook needs to track us is so that it can charge big bucks to advertisers who want to target very specific audiences. But Mark Zuckerberg knows that people don't care if he can't afford to give his hovercraft a Lamborghini for its birthday. So instead, he's asking you to think about the poor companies that'll suffer if he can't track you.
Facebook said Apple's move will harm their small business advertisers.
It's going to kill us. It's going to kill us.
But for Monique Wilson-Debriano, who was featured in a Facebook campaign and owns Charleston Gourmet Burger, the change has already affected sales and she's had to cut costs.
It's not about small businesses, wanting to take away anyone's privacy. All we want to do is really just service our customers better. So if someone loves hamburgers and they're looking for something that is just awesome, to make your hamburgers taste better, I would like to show my ad to you. And this update takes that away from small businesses like mine.
Okay, now this is interesting. I mean, I don't like getting tracked, but it is true that it does help some small businesses target their ads, And the truth is, in life, bad things can have good side effects. It's like how serial killers are bad. We all agree that they're bad. But you do get a lot of really interesting podcasts out of them. Yeah? No. So I can't see what Facebook is trying to argue here. They're saying, do you really want to hurt small businesses before Amazon has a chance to bankrupt them? And honestly, I wouldn't mind targeted ads that much. But the thing is, it's how. It is how Facebook tracks all of us that I don't like. Like, it would be one thing if Facebook asked me, hey, Trevor, do you like hamburgers? We're going to show you stuff about food. But what Facebook actually does is basically just send some guy named Gary to just stalk my entire life. Hey, Trevor, I heard you like hamburgers. How did you know that? I read an email you sent to your girlfriend. So maybe you're still not swayed by the effect of this change on small businesses. And that's why Facebook is also warning of the bleak future that awaits all of us if they can't track our every movement anymore.
Facebook's pushing back. It relies on that data to target consumers with relevant ads. So if people do opt out, here's what Facebook says could happen. Say a young man is looking for a new pair of sneakers on his phone. Facebook claims that with Apple's new rules, it won't be able to use his search history and information about what other apps he uses to show him ads for things he wants to buy. So on Facebook or Instagram, you could end up seeing ads for women's clothing or furniture.
Really? This is a real argument? Come on, man, get the fuck out of here, guys. We've lived our entire lives watching untargeted ads, right? TV ads, newspaper ads, billboards, none of those were targeted, and we were fine, right? Now, all of a sudden, they make it seem like we can't live without them. Like we're gonna be like, oh no, I have to watch untargeted ads, but how will I know if a product isn't for me? What if I buy tampons because I didn't know that I don't have a period? What if I buy dog food, but I don't have a dog? Am I a dog? Am I dog on tampon? I don't know. We can handle untargeted ads. In fact, sometimes untargeted ads introduce you to things that you never knew you needed. Yeah, like a shower seat. I didn't think about that before I came to America. And then now that I'm here, I realize just because I'm not 80 doesn't mean I can't get clean and comfortable. And you know, on top of all that, Facebook makes it seem, they make it seem like all they use that data for is to sell us the products that we want. But don't forget that the reason you often only see posts that make you mad as hell is because of all the time Facebook is tracking you, and they use that targeting to piss you off. It's not a coincidence that Facebook is always telling you that Joe Biden is going to make the Bible Spanish only, or that Trump stole all the mailboxes to give to Kim Jong-un. It's because they know how to keep you engaged for as long as possible, and they know this by tracking you. And again, I'm not pro-Apple here, right? But Apple didn't build their entire business model on stalking you. Facebook did. And if moving society away from tracking people means that Gary has to find a new job, then you know what? So be it.
But then, Trev, who will recommend creams for your toenail fungus?
Get the f*** out of here, Gary. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, a lot of people are doing worse than ever. Because it turns out that the technology keeping us connected is also making us feel like shit.
With the stress of the pandemic, body image issues have been on the rise.
43% of women, 26% of men said COVID-19 negatively affected how attractive they felt.
The countless hours spent on Zoom or video calls is causing more and more Americans to be insecure about their appearance.
Video conferencing presents a constant, unedited, unfiltered look at ourselves that can be unsettling. And those front-facing cameras we're all using aren't doing us any favors.
Things like the nose could actually appear larger and wider, and the eyes could appear smaller. Not only is a person confronting their own reflection with much greater intensity and frequency than they ever had before, but they were staring at a distorted reflection.
This is all part of an alarming new trend coined Zoom dysmorphia.
Yes, Zoom dysmorphia. It's when you realize that it's not just everyone else who looks terrible on Zoom. And that's really not cool. You know, Zoom shouldn't make you feel bad about your looks. It should make you feel bad about your dirty-ass living room. But you have to remember, people, this is a new phenomenon that we're dealing with. Humans didn't evolve to see their own faces all the time. That's not normal. I mean, except for twins, I guess. They don't count, they're freaks. It's like another one of you? What? Like, think about it. For most of human history, if you wanted to know what you looked like, you had to get your friend to smash up some blueberry and rub it on a cave wall. You look like this. Damn, do I really hold a spear like that? Now, the good news is that it's likely we'll all be using Zoom a lot less in the near future. But unfortunately, there's another technology that also makes us feel bad about ourselves, and it doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. I'm talking about photo filters. Yes, they've helped mankind realize its dream of puking rainbows, but some of the most popular filters just help you look more attractive, which may sound harmless, but it could be anything but.
Cutting-edge apps and social media filters are allowing ordinary people to enhance their online photos to impossible perfection. In some cases, it's sparking a concerning phenomenon.
With apps like Facetune, you have the power to completely transform yourself. Bigger eyes, skinnier nose and jawline,
Smaller butt or flatter belly, whiter teeth, smoother skin. You can do it right on your phone.
When I take a selfie, I always use filters. I wish I could look like my filtered self in real life.
This obsession with personal appearance that selfie culture encourages may have darker implications for mental health.
A study in the Journal of the American Medical Association says filtered pictures can take a toll on self-esteem, body image, and even lead to body dysmorphic disorder.
I do feel like we're losing touch with what reality looks like. We're already getting there to the point where we're expecting people to look as unhuman as possible.
Yeah, photo editing filters set unrealistic expectations for beauty. The same way Fruit Ninja sets up unrealistic expectations of how easy it is to slice floating fruit. And once you have this filtered version of yourself in your head, you become dissatisfied with what you really look like. So in essence, we're basically catfishing ourselves. But if these editing apps can turn adults into quivering blobs of insecurity, just imagine what they're doing to kids.
Psychologists warn these photo filters can be particularly troubling for teens and young people who are still developing their sense of self.
80% of girls in one survey say they compare the way they look to other people on social media.
On Instagram, like I follow people like Kendall Jenner and Kylie Jenner, and they all have this like time measure, like body image, that everyone is expecting from this generation.
Young girls on social media have a negative body perception, with 1 in 7 girls reporting being unhappy with the way they look at the end of elementary school. And that number almost doubling to nearly 1 in 3 by age 14.
80% of young girls are using photo retouching apps to change the way they look before posting pictures.
And those with high scores for manipulating their photos were associated with high scores for body-related and eating concerns.
Any of you ever question your body because of what you see on social media?
Shame, man. This is a vicious cycle for teenagers. Social media makes them unhappy with how they look. So then they use filters, which perpetuate the unrealistic expectations for themselves and others. Plus, they're teenagers, so they're doing all of this while they're driving, which puts everyone at risk. And all the insecurity this creates is harmful for teenagers because I know it's hard to tune all of this out, but teens shouldn't be obsessing over this stuff. Like, I honestly wish I could sit all teenagers down and say, hey, don't worry about how you look. The planet's gonna die out before you're 30. It doesn't matter. Now, it's bad enough when people wish they had the perfect Instagram look in real life. What's worse is when they actually try to make it happen.
The more people look at doctored up images, the more likely they are to actually start seeking out cosmetic procedures at younger ages.
These cosmetic procedures are becoming so popular with teens. Plastic surgeons have coined a new syndrome for it, Snapchat dysmorphia.
And the number of kids getting nip tucks may astound you. In 2017, nearly 230,000 teens had cosmetic procedures. Kids as young as 13 are getting them.
Doctors seeing an influx of people of all ages turning to plastic surgery to look more like their filter.
62% of plastic surgeons reported their patients wanted to go under the knife because of dissatisfaction with their social media profile. 57% said their patients wanted to look better in selfies.
Absolutely. It's becoming more and more common when people will show me images on their Instagram or even something they posted on Facebook and go, this is really how I want to look.
Just last week I had a patient come in and ask me for more of an anime eye, and she couldn't figure out why it's not possible.
Okay, man, this is really disturbing. 13-year-olds in particular should not be getting plastic surgery. I mean, when you're 13, your physical appearance is already naturally changing. That's what our faces are doing. It's like long-term plastic surgery. I mean, this is what I looked like when I was 13. You gotta let that shit play out. Honestly, though, I don't blame the teenagers. I blame the parents and the plastic surgeons. I mean, how are you going to let them do this to themselves? They can't even buy cigarettes, but you're going to let them buy a new face? Clearly, this is getting out of hand, which is why there's now a movement, not just against filters, but all the ways that people have been distorting reality on social media.
Many influencers have started speaking up on this issue, admitting that they've presented altered images in the past
and are opening up the conversation. Some are even posting raw, totally unedited photos of themselves and breaking down how people on your Instagram feed may be manipulating their angles and lighting to get that quote-unquote perfect selfie.
There are many celebrities exposing the dangers of digital distortion. They are posting images of themselves unedited, unfiltered online. And this is a great example to young girls.
Pop star Lizzo made a big splash when she posted a selfie in the nude and untouched.
There's no shame anymore, and I just kind of post myself. It's like, you take me as I am. You don't have to love me.
British MP Luke Evans has proposed the digitally altered body image bill, which would require advertisers and publishers to display a logo whenever a person's face or body has been digitally enhanced.
Okay, first of all, I love the idea of putting disclaimers on photos of people who have been digitally altered. I love it. And honestly, I don't think we should stop there. We need to do this with everything that's being digitally altered, like food ads. Those are the worst. Every fast food burger looks great on TV. And then when I order it, it looks like it fell asleep in a hot tub. But I'm glad that we're finally learning the truth about what celebrities look like. You know, personally, I'm waiting for SpongeBob to join this movement. I mean, no way that guy is that square naturally. Have you seen that? That is not even, maybe he's not real. Then how would he have a TV show? Now, I'm not naive enough to think that society is going to stop creating unrealistic beauty standards anytime soon, all right? But what I do hope is that we can better educate our kids and ourselves that our own natural bodies are beautiful. I mean, except for that flap of old people's skin we have on our elbows. That shit is gross. I don't care who you are. It looks like a mid-arm ball sack. But everything else is beautiful.
Bill Gates. He's rich, he's brilliant, and apparently he's out of his mind.
This is a container of human feces.
Why is one of the richest men in the world carrying a jar of his own shit? I went to Seattle to find out what's wrong with Bill Gates.
Mr. Gates, it's a huge honor to meet you. Just a quick question. What the is wrong with you? I mean, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm great. Love what I'm doing.
Okay, so why are you carrying around your own poop in a jar?
I did have a beaker of human feces when I was explaining why we need a reinvented toilet.
You don't need to reinvent the toilet. We shit in it, and then we push a button, then the shit disappears.
Well, toilets are something we take for granted, but billions of people don't have them. Even in these growing cities and poor countries, they can't afford to build sewers.
Ads. Stupid ads.
We all know the crazy chaos caused by
It's
trying to
crazy.
use more than one app.
They don't even let you skip the first ad and then they bring the second ad. No.
Over the last few
I think
you may have
after
heard people talking about
5
NFTs,
seconds,
which I found out
he
too
will
late
just skip.
does not stand for nudist fishing trip. Again, I'm sorry. But what are NFTs?
So actually,
And why are people trying to
talk
get
about
rich with
this
them? Well,
in the
let's find out
conversation.
in another episode of If You Don't Know, Now You Know. If you've heard about NFTs, you probably know that it's the latest hot trend that teenagers have to explain to their parents and grandparents and boyfriends. But this trend also has big money behind it.
The new craze breaking out in the crypto world, and it's all about crypto collectibles. Non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, are exploding in popularity.
In February alone, NFT sales hitting $340 million. That's up from $12 million in December.
NFT stands for non-fungible token. Now, in economics, fungible means you can trade one identical unit for another. Think a dollar bill, gold, oil, or Bitcoin. Non-fungible means it's unique, can't be replaced.
In music, the Kings of Leon releasing an NFT-only album. In social media, Jack Dorsey's first tweet selling for nearly $3 million.
The art world just turned upside down with the sale of this digital collage entitled The First 5,000 Days, a work that took 13 years to create. It sold Thursday in an auction for $69.3 million.
That's right. Move over, GameStop. There's a new confusing internet money thing in town. But yes, NFTs are blowing up so much right now that one digital collage sold for $69 million. $69 million. I would never pay that much for a collage. Never. Unless it was the one from that Tupac video where all the little videos of Tupac turned into one giant image of Tupac. You remember that? Yo, that shit blew my mind. But if I did spend $69 million on a picture, best believe that would be the only picture I show people ever again. Didn't you just have a baby, Trevor? Yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry about it. Look at this, though. Look at this picture. $69 million. $69 million. Shut up! The problem, though, is that if digital pictures become the new status symbol, you realize that rap videos are about to get boring as hell. Because, I mean, instead of showing off expensive cars or pet tigers, what, rappers are just going to be clicking through their computer.
What's he doing?
This may all seem insane.
God.
Now, this may all seem insane.
Okay, you actually said if you should buy the picture, he's going to sit down and show
spending money on
everybody.
anything else. You know, anything else that people collect, like baseball cards, or beanie babies, or the fingers of Secret Service agents. NFTs are really just a new twist on that.
The idea of collectibles has always been very physical. You have comic books that you read, or you have art that you hang on your wall. But with these, it is meant to be entirely digital.
On the surface, buyers appear to be purchasing what's already on the internet for free, like this video of a monstrous dunk by LeBron James. The clip recently sold as a digital trading card for $208,000, but you can still watch it online at no cost.
Think of the Mona Lisa. It's an original piece of art. It couldn't be swapped out for, say, a Mona Lisa poster from the Louvre gift shop because the poster doesn't hold the same value.
Exactly. A Mona Lisa from the gift shop isn't as valuable as the painting itself, unless Leonardo da Vinci also painted Mona Lisa onto a mouse pad. Oh, if you don't mind, can you stay a little longer, please? This one is for Greg and HR's desk, okay? Yes, smile, but not too much a smile, just like a kind of smile. Perfect.
Guys, his
Oh,
impressions are insane.
And I know right now, you might be saying, but Trevor, why would I want a clip of LeBron dunking? I'd rather have an NFT of something you never see, like the Knicks winning a championship. But it's not just a clip of LeBron dunking. It's the official clip of LeBron dunking. And that's what makes it valuable. Because people love to have things that no one else has. Check out this dog turd. Ew, gross. It's the only turd that dog ever made. I'll give you $1 million for it. And if you're thinking, well, that's kind of unusual, but it would still be cool to buy the original version of a digital artwork or a song or a video, well, here's where it gets weird. That's not exactly what you're buying either.
An NFT is kind of like a certificate of ownership for virtual assets.
Essentially, when you buy an NFT, you're not buying the horse is somewhere else. You're buying the racing papers that say, here's where the horse came from, here's who's owned it over all these years, here's this horse's record.
What the buyer gets is essentially a long string of numbers and letters. It's a code that exists on the Ethereum blockchain.
It relies on blockchain technology, sometimes described as a kind of digital record keeping. It's a secure way to track when digital items change hands online.
Yes. Essentially what you're buying with an NFT is a long digital receipt that has your transaction along with every transaction that has ever happened. So basically it's like a CVS receipt. You know, it's miles of irrelevant information, but somewhere buried in there, it says that you bought a Gatorade and some pretzels, and maybe cousins, but not cousins. You went for the Gatorade and pretzels. In other words, the point of NFTs is to create artificial scarcity. And this isn't just so that speculators with too much money can make even more money. It can also be a way for artists and musicians to make a living in the digital age. Like right now, one of your favorite musicians is probably scraping by on a fraction of a penny every time someone streams one of their songs. But if they auction off that song to the highest bidder as an NFT, now that musician that you love
basically, the blockchain is a permanent record, while the record is permanent and stable. The location where the work is hosted may not be.
Effectively, you're buying access to a code that runs through a gateway online. If the gateway, effectively the website, goes down, you've lost whatever you just bought.
And if that server, if it happens to be holding the object, goes down or it's moved, who's ever controlling it forgets to pay their hosting fee, then your NFT could point to nothing.
Let's say that I buy an NFT and I go to the link for the third-party hosting thing that has gone down, and what I see is the most expensive 404 of my life.
Ooh. Man, if I spend $69 million on a JPEG, you better believe my basement is going to have more backup servers than Hillary Clinton. Imagine if you spent millions of dollars to own the Crime Jordan meme and then you lost it. Now you don't even have a meme to show how sad you are. Like, this would be the dumbest way possible to lose a valuable collectible. At least if you lose a rare piece of artwork, what happened? A cat burglar had to pull off like an ingenious heist. To lose an NFT, you just need a janitor to bump the surge protector with a vacuum. So, now you know about NFTs. And they may be the next big thing in the world of collectibles, but if you invested in one, you better pray the server that's hosting it never goes down. Otherwise, that rap video is about to get real sad.
Mom! Put that shit down! Mom!
This guy is insane, man. It's
then the bill is basically dead. And if you're wondering, why on earth would the founding fathers put that in the Constitution? Well, they didn't.
The filibuster began as a historical accident. It's not some great tradition in the Senate that's protected by the Constitution. It happened in 1805 after Aaron Burr suggested a rules change.
Aaron Burr, as vice president in the early 1800s, is going over these rules of the Senate, and he made a critical mistake. He thought, we don't really need a way to stop a debate, do we? I mean, there's just a feeling. It's like, we will debate until we're done, so everyone's had their say. How slow could the Senate really be?
Nobody knew it at the time. It would be 3 more decades before the first filibuster was actually mounted. But that was the moment the Senate created the filibuster.
That's right. The filibuster isn't in the Constitution. It's just a rule that was made up by that guy who shot Lin-Manuel Miranda. And it didn't even start out as a way to block legislation. It was a way for the Senate to keep debate open, not to debate for so long that nobody could ever actually vote on a bill. So its original purpose is completely different from what people decided to use it for later on. It's insane. It's sort of like how Facebook was invented as a way to see which of your classmates were hot. And then years later, it became a way to organize a lynch mob for Mike Pence, who, by the way, is hot. And you might wonder why senators back then would want to risk having an endless debate. But don't forget, guys, in the 1800s, there wasn't anything better to do. I mean, it was either listen to Thaddeus talk about a bill, or take a bumpy carriage ride back to your plantation where a bunch of black people wanted to discuss their terms of employment. You're probably going to want to hear what Thaddeus has to say. Either way, eventually senators realized that they could block legislation by debating forever. And that could get pretty ridiculous because there was no rule on what counted as a debate. So senators came up with all kinds of random ways to fill that time, which led to moments like this.
Louisiana Democrat Huey Long filibustered several bills. In arguing against a bill, he recited recipes for salad dressing and discussed at length the best way to fry oysters. His most famous filibuster was on June 12, 1935. He was able to speak without stop for 15 hours and 30 minutes. Running out of things to say about the bill, he offered to give advice on any subject someone requested.
Yep, in 1935, this white dude rambled on about nothing for over 15 hours, and somehow he gets 0 credit for inventing the podcast. So unfair. But the Senate is crazy, man. This guy got on the floor and talked for 15 hours about oysters and salad dressing. I mean, they should make it a rule that you at least have to try to connect your speech to the bill that you're supposed to be debating. I guarantee that salad dressing is delicious. But you know what doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth? Letting women wear pants. But still, I'm not gonna lie, it's impressive that he could talk for that long. That shit is hard. I can't even think of 20 seconds of stuff to talk about to a coworker in an elevator. So, we're in floor 9, huh? Yeah, how's this weather we're having? So much weather. I think I'm just gonna get out here. I will say though, it makes sense that senators are so good at filibustering because most of them are grandparents. Don't forget that. Visit your granddad and see if he doesn't take 3 hours to tell you a story that happened in 20 minutes. You're filibustering, Grandpa! But it wasn't until the late 1950s that the filibuster started to become more common. And what cause was so inspiring to senators at that time that they just had to stand up and speak for hours? Being racist.
For a few decades, the filibuster is used, but pretty sparingly. Then the Senate starts to consider civil rights legislation, and Southern senators really hate this. But they don't have the votes to actually defeat the bills, so they start using the filibuster.
It became a tool that Southern senators used to prevent the federal government from intervening in racial segregation.
Perhaps the most famous one was when South Carolina's Strom Thurmond took the floor against the 1957 Civil Rights Act.
Thurmond notoriously read the phone book, clocking in at more than 24 hours to try to block a 1957 civil rights bill.
How did you last 24 hours? You never left the Senate floor.
I go down to the Senate bath for 3 or 4 days beforehand and dried out my body.
In the sauna?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be tempted to go to the bathroom. and so I was able to do that.
Oh, Strom, you are too much. And when I think about all those black people who suffered because of you. No, for real, man. How gross was that story? This guy dried out his body to help him filibuster? You know someone is committed to racism when they're willing to jerky themselves for it. And it really is amazing what humans can accomplish when confronted with their worst fears. Just as a mother will be able to lift a car off of the ground to save her child, a racist senator will suddenly be able to speak for days at a time, only if it will stop a black person from using his bathroom. I mean, the filibuster was used to block black people so many times, I'm surprised they never use it at nightclubs. A black guy. Hey, before I let you in, have I ever told you about my salad dressing? 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, a pinch of rosemary. And what you want to try and do is make sure that, okay, he's gone. All right. Now, eventually, the Senate decided that all of these talkathons were slowing things down too much. So in 1975, they made what they thought was a small adjustment to the rules. Instead of having to speak, a senator could just announce that they planned to speak. And unless there were 60 votes to prevent them, the filibuster would be considered successful. And that actually worked for a while, until 2 things happened. America elected a black president and a Senate minority leader who was willing to do anything to stop him.
The practice became an art form for Republicans under Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. During the Obama years, McConnell impeded nominees and legislation left and right. He has the nickname the Grim Reaper for a reason.
Today, it's being used in a different way. It's being used to effectively kill a measure, a bill, a proposal that the minority really doesn't like.
In fact, there have been more filibusters during Obama's time in office than in the 50s, 60s, and 70s combined.
Over the entire history of the Senate, before President Obama, just 68 judicial and executive branch nominees were blocked and required cloture, which ends a filibuster, forces an up or down vote. By contrast, 79 of President Obama's nominees required cloture from 2009 to 2013 alone.
Republicans used the filibuster against virtually every controversial bill and nomination, and some that weren't controversial at all.
Mitch McConnell has the devious distinction of being the only sitting senator that filibustered his own bill.
God damn. Mitch McConnell loves the filibuster so much, he filibustered his own bill. And he had to get 4 ribs removed to be able to do it. The man is sick. But yes, once Obama became president, McConnell began filibustering everything. Obama wanted to appoint a judge, McConnell blocked it. Obama wanted to pass a bill, McConnell stopped him. Obama wanted to watch something on Netflix, McConnell hid the remote in his neck folds. I haven't seen it anywhere. Maybe I should read a book. And once McConnell decided to block Obama's entire agenda, that became the new precedent. You know, when Democrats got the chance, they blocked President Trump's agenda just as hard, to the point where now practically every piece of legislation in the Senate needs 60 votes to pass. And that's why there's a movement to get rid of the filibuster entirely. Because it's not healthy for a democracy if the losers can always block the winners from passing their agenda. Now, the Democrats don't have the votes right now to kill the filibuster completely. But based on Joe Biden's interview, it seems like they may be willing to make it more annoying again. Which won't stop filibusters from happening, but at least we'll finally get to find out what Mitch McConnell uses in his salad dressing. So what you want is the cheers of poor people. And then you want to grind it up with the pressure. So, that's the filibuster. And if you don't know, now you know. Being president is a weird job. Because in a democracy, the president is the leader of the country, but they're also an employee. So do presidents have the right to keep their health problems to themselves? Well, throughout history, presidents have answered yes.
Eisenhower was the first president to actually open up medical records, but when a bad event happened, they went into a kind of cover-up mode. September of 1955, he was in Colorado and had a massive, I mean massive heart attack. And instead, his personal doctor told the press it was indigestion.
After Ronald Reagan was shot in 1981, the White House released a photo showing him standing with Nancy Reagan, cropping out a nurse holding a machine connected to a chest tube, and never revealing how close he came to dying.
Kennedy flatly denied his Addison's disease, a hormonal deficiency that can cause fatigue, low blood pressure, and weight loss. But he had it.
While in office, he at times took as many as 8 medications a day just to function, including painkillers, stimulants, antibiotics, steroids, hormones.
The man was essentially a walking pharmacy.
FDR was never transparent about his health, never. He tried to hide that he used a wheelchair for years and largely got away with it.
If Secret Service agents saw a photographer taking a picture of Roosevelt, say, getting out of his car, they would seize the camera and tear out the film.
Damn. FDR's people really went all out to make sure people didn't see him in a wheelchair, which kind of makes you wonder what they told people was actually going on. Isn't it weird that we've never seen the president stand up or walk? Yeah, he's lazy as shit, okay? No more questions. Let's move on. I mean, look, at least back then, you could tear out someone's film in their camera. In 2020, the moment someone points a camera at you, you're already a meme. It's like, give me that phone. Give me that phone. Give me that phone. Give me that. Give me that phone. But yes, throughout American history, administrations did whatever it took to keep secrets about the president's health. From lying about FDR's wheelchair by confiscating cameras, to lying about Bill Clinton's asthma by hiding his inhaler in a saxophone. In fact, hiding health conditions goes all the way back to Lincoln. I mean, why do you think he was wearing that top hat? Dude had a conjoined twin under there, guys. That's real, right? I saw that on Facebook. In fact, the only American president who didn't get away with it was President Taft. Man, they spilled all the tea on that guy. Poor dude got stuck in a bathtub once. And we're still talking about it 100 years later. And then there's Grover Cleveland, 22nd president and world's most adorable Grover. Yeah, I said it, Grover, you mutant smurf. When it came to keeping secrets, President Cleveland took it to a whole new level.
It's hard to imagine an American president dropping out of sight for nearly a week. But that's exactly what happened in 1893, when Grover Cleveland underwent secret cancer surgery.
Back in 1893, Grover Cleveland actually had a cancerous tumor in the roof of his mouth. He didn't want anybody to know, so they snuck him onto a yacht.
He had a friend who owned a yacht, so the cover story would be, I'm just going on a fishing trip. And while they were on that boat, the operation took place. 6 doctors were recruited. They were all sworn to secrecy. And in about 90 minutes, they removed most of his upper left palate,
5 teeth and a good part of his upper left jaw as well. They managed to keep the press at bay. They kept them at a distance from his home on Cape Cod until the wound was healed well enough. It took about 3 weeks, and then he was fitted with a prosthetic device that he could pop up into his upper left jaw. But by and large, the secret held for 24 years.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Nobody heard from the president for 3 weeks? What a dream. But goddamn, that's a major cover-up. Grover Cleveland basically invented that move that celebrities do when they get secret butt implants. Oh yeah, I've just been away traveling for a couple of weeks. Oh, my butt? Yeah, I guess it did get twice as big. You know how vacations are. And if you ask me, it's hard to imagine a riskier situation for a president. Surgery on a boat in 1893? And don't forget, they had dragons back then. President Cleveland was a sitting duck out there.
I was just waiting to see something stupid.
Honestly, I don't even know why Cleveland went through all this trouble. If I were a president with a fake jaw, I would own that shit, baby. I would use it to intimidate other foreign leaders. Oh, what's that, China? You're gonna put sanctions on us? Well, check this out. And look, maybe it's not a big problem if a president hides some dental work or a mild pill addiction. I mean, as long as they can still do the job. What's the difference? But there was also one case of a president who got so sick that he couldn't do the job, and they still didn't tell the American people.
Woodrow Wilson had a stroke that not even his closest advisors knew about.
His last year and a half, almost a year and a half in office, he was incapacitated.
His wife tried to conceal how bad it was. It turns out he was partially blind. He was partially paralyzed. He was lying upstairs in a bed in the White House growing a beard, and they pretended that it was not that bad.
His wife and his doctor told the cabinet and told the vice president, he's okay, we got this. You just can't see him. He's in seclusion upstairs, and we'll pass down his decisions.
They told the public their leader was suffering from exhaustion. Many say Edith Wilson effectively ran the country during that time.
Holy shit! You guys act like this is some fun little quirk of American history, but y'all had a straight-up coup. And also, a secret woman president? Guys, that's huge. Why don't people talk about this more? Who run the world? Girls. But only behind the scenes while getting none of the credit? Girls. So yes, America has a proud history of its presidents misleading the public about their health. So from now on, when you hear Trump or his doctors withholding medical information, don't stress. Because in a way, this might actually be the most presidential thing Donald Trump has ever done. And if you don't know, now you know.
This video came out during
it's not a job that's actually in the Constitution, but that's just because in 1787, women hadn't been invented yet. And even though First Lady is not an official role, they've been important figures in the country from the very beginning.
From the earliest days, America's first ladies were referred to as Lady Presidenttress or Republican Queen.
The term First Lady didn't come into use really until Dolly Madison's time.
The fourth First Lady pioneered the practice of championing social causes. She helped orphan children and supported women's rights.
And it's said that at Mrs. Madison's funeral, President Zachary Taylor eulogized her as the country's First Lady, the first time that title was ever used.
That's right. Dolly Madison was the First Lady. But she didn't know it because President Taylor only called her that at her funeral. If I were Dolly Madison, I would be dead, but also I would have been so pissed at Zachary Taylor. Because before him, people were calling her Lady Presidenttress or Republican Queen. And those were so much cooler as names. Then at her funeral, some dude is like, no, she was the First Lady. If I was her, I'd be getting out of that costume like, what'd you say? Bitch, you call me Queen Supreme. First Lady Queen. But while the idea of a First Lady has been around from the beginning, the job as we know it today didn't really kick off until the 1930s. You know, it's like how, for years, Netflix was a company that sent DVDs in the mail. But that's not what people think of as Netflix now. And the first streaming-on-demand First Lady was Eleanor Roosevelt.
Eleanor Roosevelt really innovated the First Lady's role as a public communicator.
She wrote thousands of columns, 27 books. She participated in hundreds of radio shows.
She felt that her role was to really reach out to the American people and to learn from them about what they wanted in policy.
First Lady had taken to the road and traveled hundreds of thousands of miles,
going right to the source of the country's pain during the Depression, meeting miners in Appalachia, challenging Southern Democrats to support anti-lynching legislation, and during World War II, visiting internment camps where Japanese Americans were imprisoned simply because of their race. The First Lady was often alone at the wheel, driving herself cross-country.
Now that is ballsy as hell. Eleanor Roosevelt was so politically active, she visited the Japanese internment camps that her husband set up. It's so classic for a wife to go around cleaning up her husband's mess. She was probably at those internment camps like, I'm sorry, he just gets a little racist sometimes. Work has been really stressful. He's not normally this way. Really, he isn't. And she even took road trips by herself, which was very gutsy in the 1930s. There was no phones, no GPS, you know? Although I guess it's hard to get lost when there were only like, what, 2 roads in the entire country? Okay, young buck, listen up. You want to get from California to the White House, pay attention. You want to turn onto road, are you listening? You want to turn onto road 1. And then you're gonna drive straight on road 1. And then you'll be there. And once Eleanor Roosevelt realized that she could use her position to bring attention to the issues that were important to her, every First Lady who followed did the same.
Lady Bird Johnson sought to beautify the nation and took an active role in the Head Start program for early child development. Barbara Bush advocated for literacy, as did Laura Bush.
In 1962, Jackie Kennedy Onassis created the White House Historical Association.
Betty Ford was vocal about women's issues. She supported the Supreme Court's ruling on Roe v. Wade, which made abortion legal, and she supported the Equal Rights Amendment. She openly discussed her breast cancer and mastectomy.
When Michelle Obama was First Lady, one of her key initiatives was to push for healthier nutrition and food choices. That translated into a change for public school lunches around the country.
In the 80s, Nancy Reagan appeared in a popular sitcom to boost her Just Say No campaign.
Who's talking about Mrs. Reagan? I'm concerned about drug abuse, especially among the young.
Wow, that is commitment. Nancy Reagan was so determined to stop drug abuse, she even went on a sitcom to speak out on it, which would be impossible to do today. I mean, TV shows are so much more adult now. I mean, it's easy to tell Gary Coleman not to do drugs. It's a lot harder to try and do that on Euphoria. Just say no, Zendaya. Bitch, you should have been here season 1. But it's through that activism that First Ladies get to show who they really are and how they want the world to change. You know, Michelle Obama cared about health. Hillary Clinton cared about children and education. Melania cared about stopping cyberbullies. And say what you want, but her agenda got done. And the thing about being a First Lady is that they're not just expected to promote social causes. They're also expected to be style influencers. Jackie Kennedy's pillbox hats, Nancy Reagan's red dresses, Hillary Clinton's pantsuits, or Pat Nixon's Xena cosplay. But of course, all this attention also means that First Ladies get subjected to intense scrutiny by the press. And it's not something that they've been happy about.
To be the First Lady may be the most difficult job in Washington.
Martha Washington famously said the role of First Lady can sometimes feel like a state prisoner.
Michelle Obama wore a pair of shorts, just a regular pair of mom shorts, and an uproar ensued, days of video commentary and pictures and debate about whether it's okay for a First Lady to wear shorts.
Andrew Jackson's wife, Rachel, was blasted in the papers for being a pipe-smoking hillbilly from Tennessee.
Jackie Kennedy called the press harpies, and she hated the constant attention.
Truman felt very uncomfortable, very ill at ease with all the fanfare and the attention of the press.
There was a famous incident where she was doing a christening of a ship,
and she went to break the bottle, and they forgot to score the bottle ahead of time, so she's banging it and banging it, and it just won't break. She was humiliated. She told her husband, "I'm not doing another public appearance."
Oh, poor Bess Truman. I honestly feel bad for her because we've all had that moment where we just can't open a jar of peanut butter. But imagine if the entire country was watching you struggle with that jar. Almost got it, everybody. Hold on. Try running hot water over it. I tried that already. If you ask me, the person to blame is the one who started this whole tradition. Who thought it was a good idea to christen a new ship by smashing it with a champagne bottle? You don't christen a new car by slashing the tires with a samurai sword. And honestly, all the first ladies are in an unfair situation because none of them asked to be in that position. Martha Washington was right. It is sort of like a prison. Although it's weird to say you feel like a prisoner when you own slaves yourself. Sometimes I just feel like I can't leave. You know what I mean? Yeah, Mrs. Masser, I think I do. But maybe the most fascinating thing about first ladies is that even though no one votes for them, and they kind of make up the job as they go, just by virtue of being married to the president, they can end up having a lot more power than many elected officials.
The First Lady is the most powerful woman in the country because she has the ear first thing in the morning and last thing at night of the most powerful man in the country.
Going back to the very First Lady, Martha Washington, and the second one, Abigail Adams, both of them were politically involved. They were involved in cabinet decisions. They were involved in campaigning. These women were political partners.
Nancy Reagan was pulling a lot of the strings, calling many of the shots, from President Ronald Reagan's first campaign for the White House back in 1980 to his Cold War-ending triumph in 1987.
Hillary Clinton became more involved, obviously, in policymaking than any first lady before her. She had an office in the West Wing. Bill Clinton even ran on the slogan, "Buy one, get one free."
In 1919, Edith Wilson was unofficially running the country after her husband Woodrow suffered a stroke.
That's insane, man. Not only have first ladies influenced the president, Edith Wilson ended up running the government. And by the way, that totally screwed the vice president over. I mean, like 90% of the vice president's job is being there in case the president goes down. So that's like being Tom Brady's backup, and then he gets hurt, but then Giselle comes out like, no, I got this. Get back on the bench, loser. I throw for my husband. So, as the Biden administration gets underway, history suggests that Jill Biden will likely be a major part of it. Because first ladies always have been. And if you don't know, now you know. When you were a little kid, you probably believed that people vote for presidents, and whoever gets the most votes wins. Yeah? Simple child mind. The same way you believed that your younger brother was brought by the stork. But once you got older, you learned that actually your mom and dad were riding the F train to Bonetown, because Bonetown is where the stork lives, and that's how they got your little brother. And in the same way, the system for electing a president in America is more complex than just one person, one vote. Because you see, America's founding fathers wanted to come up with something that would prevent their biggest fear, the people choosing someone terrible.
The Electoral College is a sort of glued together solution to a problem that the Constitutional Convention couldn't really solve.
They said, should the Congress elect the president? No, if they do that, then Congress will own the presidency.
Another option was to have the people select their leader, but at the time they thought the country was too large and the people were not informed enough to make that choice.
And one of the odd compromises that they came up with was actually using this set of political elites to do the actual voting for president, but still providing a mechanism to select those electors.
They thought by creating this wise group of elites, these electors could filter popular passions. They were afraid of a demagogue being chosen. They mistrusted direct democracy.
Alexander Hamilton wrote that the goal was to ensure that, quote, the office of president will never fall to the lot of any man who is not in an eminent degree endowed with the requisite qualifications.
That's right. According to Alexander Hamilton, The office of the president will never fall to the lot of any man who is not in an eminent degree endowed. Damn, I should make a musical out of this. Do you guys hear this? But the point is, Americans don't vote for the president. Americans vote for a slate of electors who will then go on to vote for the president. In many ways, it's the same way that American high school kids don't buy the beer. They give the homeless man money, and then he goes to buy the beer on their behalf. That way, it's more responsible. And it's amazing how, if you read into it, the Founding Fathers already thought that everyone in the country was super dumb. Because everyone talks about how they wanted to build a new perfect society, when really, they were just basically installing childproofing to keep the country safe and stop Americans from eating sand. Now, this whole idea of electors being smarter than the masses fell by the wayside pretty quickly. And one of the main reasons for doing this was because they thought a lot of Americans wouldn't know enough about the candidates to vote for them. But you see, that was hundreds of years ago, when information was harder to come by. Like, you only found out news when someone delivered it by horse. But now, we've got the internet, people. Everyone's super informed. Like, everyone in America, we all know things. Just look at my phone. I know that Hunter Biden moved to Russia and sold his laptop to Rudy Giuliani for drugs. I know that Hillary Clinton is in a pedophile ring and they drink the blood of children. And I know that Melania has a body double who's having an affair with Gary Busey. Huh. Actually, you know what? Maybe we should go back to the horse. I don't know about this internet thing. But the point is, today it's understood that the state's electors will vote for the candidate who won their state's popular vote. The only problem is, that's just an understanding. It's not an actual law.
According to the National Archives, there is no constitutional provision or federal law that requires electors to vote according to their results of the popular vote in their state.
Those who don't follow the will of the electorate, they're called faithless electors.
In 2016, 4 of the 12 electors in Washington decided not to vote for Hillary Clinton, despite Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote in that state. Instead, 3 voted for Colin Powell, and 1 voted for the Native American activist Faith Spotted Eagle.
It isn't a new concept. According to Fair Vote, there have been 167 faithless electors since the Electoral College was founded. 43% changed their vote because the candidate they were supposed to vote for died before the Electoral College could vote. 40% who chose to vote for the candidate they wanted rather than matching the popular vote. 17% either didn't vote or cast an abnormal vote.
In the 2004 election, rather than casting their vote for John Kerry, the unknown elector cast their vote for Kerry's VP, John Edwards, and also misspelled Edwards' name as Edwards.
Wow. So the founders just let electors do whatever they want. They can choose someone the people didn't vote for. They can vote for a third party. They can even just vote for a typo. I can't believe what a giant flaw in the American electoral system this is. It's like finding out that they keep a key to Fort Knox under the doormats. And just by the way, I don't know if we should be holding voters accountable for the correct spelling of names. I don't think that's fair, especially in a country that's got 100